It's a whole new trend. Curved displays, curved phones, and at the forefront are a couple of companies hoping to make the best of those curves. And today we're going to take a look at LG and see what they can do with a top to bottom curve on their new smartphone. Hey, it's Josh Vergara from Android Authority. What's going on, everybody? And this is the LG G Flex. Okay, new challenge. Let's see how far I can get through this entire review without making one curve, bend, or flex pun. This 6-inch screen makes for a pretty large device. There's really no other way around it. This is just a big phone. The sides are pretty thin, however, and completely bare, but that is due to LG's new button layout that was first introduced in the G2, and it returns here on the G Flex. That is the index finger position on the back of the power button flanked by volume rockers. And also the power button on the back does double as a notification LED light. Overall, this is a glossy plastic design that really does encompass the entire phone in some pretty fingerprint-prone material. However, once you get past all of that, the next thing you obviously notice, or maybe the first thing you notice, is of course that curve. When it comes to the form factor, the curve really doesn't change the handling all that much. Sure, it actually helps you to somewhat reach the top of the screen, but it still requires quite a bit of hand gymnastics. The main function of the curve, however, is obviously durability, as we've shown in a couple videos before. The phone is able to become flat without any problems and bounce right back into its original form. This is mostly useful for people who probably put their phones, let's say, in their back pockets, and then they forget that they're there and they end up sitting down. Or if you're like me, sometimes you just leave the phone on the couch, and at times when you sit down, you don't know if you just broke your phone. At least with the LG G Flex, you won't really see many problems with that. You'll have a little bit more confidence in the phone because it is able to be very somewhat malleable, but just enough so that it provides a little bit more safety. And no, the phone does not feel weird in the pocket, especially in the front pockets, where you would think a side-to-side curve might be a little bit better. No, definitely not. The LG G Flex fits very squarely in the front pocket and actually doesn't feel weird at all. So don't worry about that, all of you who have been asking. And then finally we come around to the back, and this is another kind of variation that is available in the G Flex. It is the self-healing back. This is a back made of a material that is supposed to have small scratches slowly fade away and pretty much not be there at all. Yes, it can work on small scratches, but anything from moderate to heavy scratches obviously won't be going away. Our drop test proved this because very deep scratches did happen onto the back of the phone when we dropped it on its back, and after a few hours, yes, they improved. Let's say the color came back, but certainly they were not eradicated, and it never quite improved after that. And even for the small scratches, it's more of a first glance type of thing. If you look very closely at where those small scratches once were, as you might not be able to recognize them, you might actually see remnants of them still there. The scratches don't completely go away, but they do get improved somewhat. It's kind of like polishing a crater, like I said during the drop test. So this is not a phone that is meant for one-handed usage, it's meant for two-handed usage, but that curve definitely does serve a purpose, and in terms of the design, it might allow your phone to survive the elements a little bit better than most of the ones you've probably owned before. Now when it comes to the display, we might find one or two kind of peculiar choices. This is a 6-inch screen that brings 720p resolution and 245 ppi. And as you can see here, the curve does somewhat distort the image that you can see there. However, it really just turns out to be pretty cool and really doesn't take away from the experience. It is far from experience breaking. Yes, I did ask the question myself, why is a screen this big and potentially this good, knowing what LG is capable of, using 720p resolution rather than 1080p resolution? It seems like a bit of an odd choice. But you know what, after using the phone for a little while, I do have to say that 720p resolution, you actually really don't notice it after some time. Do I notice the lower resolution in the YouTube videos? Yeah, a little bit. Did it ruin an otherwise good viewing experience? No, definitely not. For the distance that this screen may be away from your face, the text still looks quite good, and even when you zoom in, it still generally stays that way. Ultimately, LG's prowess with screens is properly represented here, regardless of the resolution. And besides, the good colors make for enjoyable media all around. You'll have a good time watching pretty much anything on this phone, or playing anything on this phone, or even reading anything on this large screen. And that is a testament to how LG is able to make even 720p resolution work for you on a 6-inch screen. If there's one place that LG didn't want to have any compromises, it is in the performance aspect. Yes, the G Flex comes with the best powered processing package available. The Snapdragon 800 backed by the Adreno 330 and 2 GB of RAM. There is no shortage of power, speed, and reliability from the snappy Optimus UI. The good performance was needed in the LG G Flex because of the added multitasking additions. The ones you probably know already are the slide aside, and then LG added into this phone dual window, which is basically a multi-window version that LG has put into this phone. Rest assured, you will be able to get all you need done on the powerful G Flex, even sometimes all at once. So aside from the curve and the healing back that were already covered in design, the hardware is pretty largely simplistic. The phone comes with 32 GB of storage, which is a pretty respectable amount considering you don't have any higher or lower capacities. The usual bevy of connectivity tools are included and are largely standard. Now speaking of which, phone calls did come in just fine, with everything coming in crisp and clear in the phone speaker through the LG G Flex. And when it comes to the main audio speaker, it is actually not that bad. It gets quite loud and has some richness to it. Now where the G Flex really shines when it comes to hardware is in the battery usage. The phone easily handled a full day of moderately heavy usage, and is likely to be able to handle yet another half day if the power saving was on. If you're just a moderate user of your smartphone, then you could get maybe about 2 days worth of life out of the G Flex. Thankfully, that is one of the main trade-offs when it comes to big phones. They might be large and they might be a little bit harder to handle, but the battery inside matches the size and will likely last quite a while. From a big phone like the LG G Flex, you could kind of expect a big camera, and that is exactly what you get here with a 13 megapixel camera optic package that alludes to some pretty high quality pictures. While we could expect that the G Flex takes some cues from the G2 camera, it does not come with optical image stabilization, unfortunately. Well, the app does come with quite a few ways of getting creative. There are a bunch of modes including HDR, panorama, and dual camera shooting, along with a couple different ways of using burst shot modes. One of the cool additions happens to be in the LED light that covers the power button on the back. You are able to keep the phone turned around in order to get a high quality portrait, and once you see a green light on the LED denoting that it has detected your face and has focused on it, you can press the volume down button in order to take the actual photo. It's kind of a nice and neat feature that allows you to get some nice self-portraits without having to rely on the lower quality front-facing camera. Pictures do tend to be quite good from this camera, though the optics tend to go for the slightly overexposed photo. So for those of you that might be photogs, if you look at the picture you might see it's a little bit lighter than you want it to be. And it's even more apparent when you use HDR, since it's looking for that high dynamic range. It'll tend to give you a much more detailed photo, but still slightly overexposed. However, overall, the pictures do seem to come out quite well and are more than useful, especially from a 13 megapixel shooter like this. As I said before, the camera on the G Flex performs about as well as it should. So if it's the only camera you have on you, you could definitely do a lot worse. And finally, we make it to the software portion. Many of the features that were introduced in the G2 do make it onto the G Flex. However, I will say that there really aren't any features that take advantage of this curve. The only one that kind of does actually has nothing to do with the curve. It is just that when you are on the lock screen and you move the phone up and down, it follows along that axis and allows you to see the background of the lock screen sort of move along with it. Yeah, that's pretty much it. All of the features that are available in the Optimus UI do have to do with a lot of multitasking. The main ones that are available in the LG G Flex include the Q-Slide apps, which are small overlays that provide small multitasking abilities with little windows that allow you to get a few little things done. After that, we have the Slide Aside, which was originally introduced in the G2. Slide Aside allows you with a 3-finger swipe to move aside entire applications and stack them together. Once you are ready to switch to a different application, just slide back with your 3 fingers and you will see all of them stacked and available for usage. And then finally, the newest addition, and arguably probably the most useful one, is the dual window. Now this is a multi-window functionality that is very welcome on a large screen such as this. Hold the back button at any point and you will be greeted with a list of applications that you can put on the top or the bottom. And then after that, when the 2 apps are running at once, like let's say YouTube and let's say the browser for a website, you can always switch the 2, move the bar up and down. It's a very nice addition for especially a large screen that you can take advantage of all that real estate with. But overall, the Optimus UI tends to really shove its features into your face. After all, when you bring down the notification dropdown, you'll see all of the options right there in front of you, and there's not a whole lot of room for just your notifications. So overall, the Optimus UI tends to lower its simplicity quotient, but in the end, I do like the utilitarian take on Android, even if it doesn't come off as the most elegant setup ever. Now, while we don't have any official pricing when it comes to the LG G Flex in the West, it has been on sale in South Korea for maybe a couple weeks now. And in South Korea, the price converted from the South Korean won and over to the US dollar comes in at about $940. Now, that's a really hefty price point, but what we do know is that the phone is coming to AT&T, T-Mobile, and Sprint. And for a high-end phone like this, I wouldn't be surprised if you had to do a 2-year contract and this phone still came in at that high-end price of $299. And so, there you have it. The LG G Flex. What we have here is a phone pioneering what is shaping up to be an interesting trend. What the new form factors will mean for functionality will vary by phone, but LG took it to mean durability and style. And in the end, the G Flex gets plenty of points for style, especially for achieving what it sets out to do. Great performance, a wonderful screen proving that resolution sometimes doesn't even matter, and a totally different profile make this a phone made to turn heads. In a growing market of large phones, you don't have to bend over backwards to find yourself enjoying this one. You don't have to find yourself bending over... Ah, damn it! As always, thank you guys very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this full review of the LG G Flex. Stay tuned to Android Authority for more coverage on it and on its Samsung counterpart, the Galaxy Round. Stay tuned for reviews, comparisons versus videos, and our weekly shows. Drop us likes on our videos, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And also, you can follow us on social media pretty much everywhere. Just find Android Authority across your social media networks. If you want to follow me from time to time, you can find me under the handles that are found below that subscribe button. Usually Joshua Vergara on Google+, and Josh Salutes on Twitter and Instagram. Keep it tuned to this channel because we are your source for all things Android.